Well, good evening, folks. Welcome back to Critical Conversations. Uh, we're excited again. I love talking to people. We as we mentioned last week, there are givers and takers. And man, we found another giver that I've known for several years. Um, and my friend Chief Dennis Rubin of the Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department. Let's make sure we clarify that because we don't want to, yeah. Uh, inside joke. So, but more importantly, and one of the reasons I asked Chief Rubin to come on is there's givers, takers, and there's also fixers. And one of the things let me back up. So, boy, I don't even know how many years ago it was. Many, many, many years ago, when Dennis was chief of the Atlanta Fire Department, he had a line of duty death. And at that time, I was part of the Chief to Chief network. I called up and talked with the chief. And normally, there's a lot of coaching that I have to do. There's a lot of advising I have to do. There's a lot of things and ideas and all those kind of things. In this case, all I said is, "Oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yep, that's right. That's right. That's right." And they did a great job. And the amazing part or unfortunate part was a couple years later, in a completely different situation, they had another line of duty death. So the office said, "Well, you dealt with Chief Rubin before." So we called up, and again, he was kind enough to let me babble for a little bit, but in all honesty, he had already had everything already squared away, dealing with the union, working with the union together to make sure that everybody was taken care of, family-wise, work members-wise, shift-wise, and that's when I knew this guy's all over it. Then we went to DC next, right?
Chief, I did. I've had a very charmed life. Lucky man, lucky career.
And I called him up. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I want to go back where you started at what, engine 11?"
No, sir, you missed it by one. I'm an engine 10 man.
That's
Um,
actually,
I was
considering my
born in
concussion, that's
Washington.
pretty good.
Oh, that's good. You hit it right on the nose, just about. I'm always proud to say I was born in Washington, in the city. I was raised in the city. I knew by about age 8 or 9 that I would work in that same city, and I was so lucky and blessed to get a chance to go there as a firefighter. When I finished my firefighting time, boy, the door opened. Actually, I went to a place called Dothan, Alabama, for about 5 or 6 years. From
Oh,
there, yeah, it was pretty cool. Fire chief, I was 44 years old. Probably didn't deserve it.
didn't know
I
about that
worked as
one.
hard as I could and kept my nose clean. And the next thing I know, Mayor Franklin's office, Shirley Franklin, excuse me, was the mayor in Atlanta at the time. And they asked me to come in for an interview. I didn't know what to make out of it, but at any rate, I went there, fell in love with the mayor. She was amazing. And the next thing I knew, I was the 17th fire chief in the city of Atlanta. Well, Atlanta is term limited. So Mayor Franklin, when I got there, she was in her third year, got to go through an election cycle with her, which was wonderful. And then as it got close to the end of her second term, she reminded all of the department heads in Atlanta, they're called commissioners. It's a cabinet, it's a strong mayor form of government, which you're probably familiar with, Nick. And she told the cabinet members, including myself, it's time to dust off your resumes,
Hmm.
really be thinking about another career opportunity. And I didn't know what to think or expect. I'm getting a little panicky now. So when the meeting was over, I met with one of the department heads that I knew very well and trusted, and I asked him. I said, "What was the mayor talking about?" She said, "You
Hmm.
didn't understand that when she's gone, you're gone." So it was like a wow, electric shock. So I started to pull together my resume. And as I was doing that, probably about a month into thinking about what's going to happen over the next 6 or 7 months, I got a call from a gentleman who said he was calling on behalf of Mayor Finty. And I thought, this is somebody like Nick calling to pull a joke on me. Everybody knows that the mayor's leaving. I finally figured that out. And my dream job of all jobs is coming true. But again, I didn't believe him at first. So after about the third time through, the guy says, look, I'm an aide to Mayor Finty. Mayor Finty was just elected. We'd love to have you in for an interview, but if there's a problem with that, now I'm starting to think, oh my goodness. So I pulled my staff car over, took a couple of notes, went up to Washington, interviewed, came back with a job.
No
Um,
kidding.
yeah, it was pretty crazy. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but when I got there, did the interviews, I was pretty sure I did not get the job. They invited me back to City Hall later that evening, and I thought this is crazy. What a waste of time. So I talked to the mayor for a good hour, hour and a half. We talked about everything under the sun except for the fire department or pay or any of that. Got back to the hotel, and the same guy, his name was Brad, called and said, Chief Rubin, you got to be here tomorrow. And I said, Brad, tomorrow I'm going to be back at my job in Atlanta. And he said, no, you need to be here. I said, what are you talking about? He said, tomorrow, Mayor Finty will announce you as the 25th fire chief of the District of Columbia. My dream job. I cannot tell you how excited and jumping up and down. But then I realized I've got to resign by
You got two
telephone.
jobs.
And the mayor has been incredible to me. Again, I could take up the rest of our time talking about the relationship that we built and the things she did for me. But as I explained to her by phone, she beat me up a little bit. And after I felt terrible and like inches tall, she says, Adrian and I, was my new boss, we've been talking about you for the past couple of months. I'll be doggone if Mayor Franklin didn't set into motion the opportunity that I would get in
Nice.
Washington, D.C. And of course, you're probably well aware, but I was lucky enough to put together a book, D.C.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
4 years of the experience there. I like to say it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. We got to do some things with the Pope as an example. Got to meet Oprah Winfrey. Had a chance to be on stage with Mayor Daley of Chicago. And again, I don't want to take up too much time in the introduction, but it was pretty clear it was going to be an incredible ride. And I tell you, it truly was.
And DC's not your regular joint. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, those dudes are still wearing beards.
We worked through that, to say the least. There's a story there as well. But Washington is a city, it is a county, and it is a state. So that's the part that was a little different. I would tell
Yeah.
people that I'm the president, secretary, and treasurer of the District of Columbia Fire Chiefs Association. Only remember me.
Well, because I don't think everybody realizes the funding. Talk just to give them an idea about the funding of that, the police, the fire, EMS in DC, because it's not like anything we're used to.
Well, I was lucky enough to go from about 170 million to fund the fire department. My second year there, we moved it up to 200 million. The next year, we hit a quarter of a billion, 250 million. The city does its own budget. However, when the budget is complete and the city council approves and the mayor signs it, the next step is it goes to the White House. The White House waits for the president to sign off. We became a home rule city in 1978, 2 years
Hmm.
after the bicentennial. So, what the presidents have done since that time, instead of worrying about signing it or that they feel like they have the final authority to give the city some credence, if you will, they do what's called a pocket veto. So, again, and that was certainly during my 4 years, and it takes an extra month, but by not signing it, it becomes law. Pocket veto is that
Okay.
term,
Okay.
and then it would be put into place. Nick, the other thing that I know you have some insight to is we would sit down with the federal counterparts and go over what responses we had.
Hmm.
There's no taxes from the White House, Rayburn, Longworth, Cannon, Old Senate, New Senate, Capitol. You get the idea. And we would estimate how much money was spent. And every quarter, we would be able to get our hands on what I would call some discretionary funds. Sometimes it was a little if there wasn't a lot of calls, and sometimes it was a little bit more. And we came up with the idea that we needed a new foam unit for the White House. That was approved almost instantly. And we began specking a Stryker 3000. And
Yeah.
remember, I was in Atlanta. and Atlanta is the largest airport in the world and the busiest in the world. So I got a really good dose of art related. And the reason why we have a foam unit at the White House is for the presidential helicopters, of course.
Right.
The Stryker 3000 would not fit into the gates. So, although I had a lot of authority and got a lot of things done, they were not moving the White House gates for Rube. So we ended up with a Stryker 1500. I think ever since then, they've had a great foam unit assigned to the White House.
I think it's actually there is a every once in a while when he's walking towards the helicopters, if you look, the striker's over on the left. You're right, it's not the biggest one, but it's a striker.
It's pretty spectacular and
Yeah.
great, great vehicle. And I can flash back to when I was a private in Washington, D.C. Again, very proud. I worked at Engine 10, which again was a personal treat and honor. And when we would go to the White House and stand there with the foam unit and the dry chemical unit and the ambulance and the battalion chief, they would always tell you, keep your hands out of your pockets. And again, we wore the aluminized suits with aluminized helmets. And the question came up, well, why? They said, stick your hands in the pockets and see what happens. And of course, the folklore was that the Secret Service would shoot you or arrest you or something. But again, you said it goes to show you just how special that job is. I would say a typical day, the president gets that service, the vice president gets a similar
Mhm.
service, and they're on the move 2 or 3 times a day. So we
Yeah.
interacted with the royalty, if you will, of this great nation.
And other royalty, right?
Of
As you were
course,
coming in.
the Pope
Anybody
was
that any
amazing. The Pope was incredible, Nick.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it, but I should have. The Pope is also a head of state,
Oh
and of
yeah.
course, it's Vatican City. So the Pope got the exact same treatment at the time as President Bush did. 3 limos come in by helicopter, et cetera, et cetera. And then one of the Secret Service agents that I've become pretty close to, he said, we have some time for some more papal visits and to get your picture taken with the Pope. Do you want to go? Are you kidding me? So I got to go meet the Holy Father, spent about
Wow.
2 hours in the papal embassy, got to kiss the Pope's ring, spent some time with him. It was incredible,
Wow.
truly.
I was happy I got my picture taken with Mrs. Obama. That's as close to royalty as I got.
That's pretty important. I've got pictures of many pictures of myself. I think I visited 7 different times during the Bush 43 administration, and then I had a chance to rub shoulders with President Obama, but only once. During the inauguration, we had a lot of authority and responsibility, and I got to travel around just behind him. But the only time I actually shook his hand was the opening of the Newseum in Washington, D.C. on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Mm.
Was very gracious, very kind, very nice man. But I really felt like I got to know President Bush. And I'm sure, my joke always is that at some point he said, you just call me W, Rube. And of course, that's not true. Please don't need to start the rumor, but what an incredible man President Bush was. And again, we had a fire in the old executive office building. I had a chance to interact. You may or may not recall at the National Fallen Firefighter weekend, he arrived. The weekend he was there was the weekend that Mr. Swantees, FAO Swantees, was laid to rest and memorialized. Athena Swantees, his wife, gave the Pledge of Allegiance along with her daughters. So I get to be on the podium with the president. Again, there were 7 different times I was in George Bush's presence, and top
Now
shot,
that's the second one, right?
sir. Yes, sir. I'd have loved to have met the father. I
Oh,
read the book 41. What an incredible man. What a great family across the board. But during my watch, President Bush was the president almost the entire time. My last year, we inaugurated President Obama.
so the first time President Bush came that I was at the memorial was on night after 9/11. And it was a nightmare. Uh, Last minute decision, all kinds of stuff like we're arguing about whether there's going to be badges on uniforms because of the metal detectors. It was everybody appreciated him coming, and I mean that from the bottom of our hearts. But at the same time, from the people we were taking care of, they were not happy. And unfortunately, that was when my guy went on the wall. So I was dealing with a very emotional family to start with, strong family, emotional firefighters, um, and suddenly we've got this melee going on. And however, the second time he came, much different situation. Um, I was escorting for the Kevin Opuzio family from down in down in New Jersey, and unknown to myself or the fire chief, um, White House had reached out to Mr. and Mrs. Opuzio, and 43 included him in his speech,
And
which
again, they
which
did were
just
amazing
racked the two of us, the chief and me. We were crying by the time we got done, and then when we went up, all stop, and they said no cameras, no this, no that, right? Keep it moving. We don't have enough time. He recognized, which is amazing. He recognized the Apuzio. The line stopped, cameras. He goes, "Let's get some pictures." So now everybody's getting pictures with him and stuff. And then I was fortunate enough, and I don't know how they do it, but somehow, um, 6 weeks later, I got a picture of me shaking the president's hand, and I'm like, "Where'd this come from?"
from the
And
U.S.
he was
Service, from the
he
Secret Service.
he
They
got touched.
you cannot have cameras, but they do take pictures for you. And if they can figure out who you are, they get them to you and they
Yeah.
sign them. And again, because we did it so often, for me, there's always a lot of rumors and innuendo, but as a rule, it goes pretty smooth. Another little secret, my namesake just retired from the Secret Service, my oldest son, and my daughter-in-law still works for the Secret Service. So when you talk about things like badges, et cetera, I don't think it's ever leave them at the corner, but somebody probably said that in the system of getting ready for them. But they bring in all the equipment, bomb sniffing
Oh
equipment,
yeah.
metal detectors, hand detectors, and they're fairly highly well trained to say the least.
Oh,
That that they'll move a large crowd through, and we'll be able to
it's
enjoy
amazing. You
the
think
time. It
about
is. It's crazy how cool it is.
all the hand grabbing and stuff. Two last things. So the traditionally we have two ladder companies. They hang the flag. They were up. They were out there from 10 o'clock at night till 1:30 in the morning.
Wow.
They finally. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. Snipers arrived at 4 in the morning. By 5 o'clock, they realized they could not follow the president from the helicopter to the podium. Take it down. And because that main flag is there, all the honor guards had put their American flags away, right? So when it came time to sing the national anthem and pledge the allegiance, the only flag that was left was the flags on the rearview mirrors for the fire trucks. It is what it is, right? He's
Well, and
got,
again, the protection of the president is amazingly huge, and I don't have to tell you about the challenges that we've seen recently. But back in time,
oh
uh,
yeah,
yeah, McKinley in 1901, the first one to get murdered. I'm sorry, Abraham Lincoln before him, but at any rate, um, the fact, though, that he visited was incredible. I think it was about 2007 or 2008. That's the same year that the Swantes family, who was burying their husband and father, Russell, and the two daughters came up. And, they said to us, "Do you want to meet the president at the helicopter side?" Well, of course we do. And the president hugged her. And
mm,
I shook my hand and hugged her again after the service was over. Just a genuinely, honest to goodness, wonderful, nice man. And I
yeah,
suspect all presidents are, but he recognized the pain that that family had gone through. And I would mention Hal Bruno. Would you remember that name?
yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, God
He's
bless
the
him.
boss.
I miss him every day, but he was in the middle of all that. And again, with his persuasion and political connections, it was just like visiting. I don't want to say with a dad or a granddad because George is not that much older than I am, but it was like talking to an older brother. I, I,
Yeah.
I had the best time with President Bush. I hope they don't audit my taxes for saying that, but he was just a genuine, down to earth, decent guy that I know would have made a great firefighter.
One last, and then we'll get off the political talk. So, again, this is when we're honoring Kevin. He's talking. He's doing his thing, doing his thing. He looks out, doing his thing. He looks out, doing his thing. He stops dead. Just stops talking and just couldn't talk. And you could see his eyes starting to get uh starting to well up. And so he grabs on to the lectern, right? And he just looks at one particular spot in the audience, and he says, we just want you to know how great, how sad we are and how we care for you and your loved ones. And he went on for a little while, and then it's like you could see the reset happening on the recorder, and then and he went right back into his speech. I don't know what happened. My gut tells me from 21 years, my gut tells me he either saw a mom and a baby, or a grandma and a baby, or a grandma hugging a wife, or something like that, and it just got him. It just plucked that heartstring, and he had to stop. He had to stop talking. He had to, and kind of. So
Wow.
he went to his gut and said what he felt about him and his wife. And then once he got that out, got some clean air in, and then he was able to keep going again. He was. I got to tell you, I came back. I worked for a Democratic for mayor at the time. I said, "You say what you want about the Republicans and about him, but when it comes to compassion, that dude had it. He
And I
really did."
think I'm going to say this right, and you're more connected to politics than I ever will be. Fire department ends up being not just bipartisan, but I'm going to describe it as nonpartisan. Both parties love the fire department. Thank goodness.
Well, we that was part of the riding the rapids there for a few years. And you've been there. You've been told to do stuff where it's like, really? You want me to try to do that? I don't know if that's possible, but well, let me do some research for you, and we'll see what we can do. You know. All right. So, but then it's time. It's time. How long were you at DC?
I was at DC about 11 years, getting started in my career, and I came back for the 4 years. I'm hoping that when there's a new mayor, they call me back. I'm teasing, but I would take the job. Uh,
So
of
then
course,
we're so then we're going to Virginia.
for the most part, when I finished in Washington, I did a couple of jobs, but I mostly worked in a uh, consulting capacity. So, in other words, a consultant might say, "Hey, can you come fill this job? Can you come fill that job?" The next big opportunity that came along to work on issues was Kansas City, Kansas. So I'm
Okay.
teaching for the National Fire Academy, and I know you're visiting me from my glass enclosed command center, which is in St. Petersburg today, because I'm teaching for the National Fire Academy. And the gentleman on the other end says, "We got a spot for you for 6 months." And if you said sit down and write a list, I wouldn't have put Kansas City, Kansas on that list. Have nothing against them. I just have never been there.
Never heard of them. Didn't
I
know that. Didn't know about it.
did not have a whole lot of background. So after a couple of weeks or a week talking to the consultants, again, this was the international city managers, they said, "Would you at least get on a Zoom and talk to the county administrator and the deputy county administrator?" And I fell in love with both. I worked for a deputy county administrator that's incredible. And her boss, my other boss, is the county administrator. And they're just two high quality, top shelf people. David is just as amazing as Bridget is. Again, I couldn't tell you how much I enjoy their company. They gave me a list of things to work on and to get cleaned up. You mentioned Fixer. So I think that was all part of that deal. And they said, "We need you here for 6 months." Yay, perfect. Consulting is going well. I've got other things lined up. I had a chance, about 2 or 3 months after I finished in Kansas City, to come down here in Florida, do the same thing over again, but it was a year contract. So as we near about the fourth month, maybe, they looked at me and they said, "What's the chances of staying another month?" Of course. They said, "If you stay another month, we'll get started on announcing the permanent fire chief. Please help us select them, and it'll take us through the end of the year." I'd come in June and they wanted me to stay. They calculated wrong. It was 7 months instead of six. So we changed the contract. I'm all set. About another month or so, I noticed there's no announcement. I've laid out all my thoughts about how I want the selection process to go. And they said, we really want you to stay. Would you consider becoming the next fire chief? And I thought about it and I said, okay, can I get parity with the police chief? And they said yes, way too quick. I wasn't expecting to stay, and I probably should have asked for more money. They are kind, wonderful. The firefighters are amazing. The system has some problems that we're working through. Too old fire stations, as in too many old fire stations. We operate out of 18 stations. Two are relatively new. The other 16 all need work. We're
So
struggling with that.
let me interrupt you for 1 second. I happen to know a little bit about the layout, but could you bring, because the first time, and how I know this is the first time I knew you were in Kansas City. So I looked up Kansas City and you weren't there. And
Right.
then I scratched my head and then I saw another something you put out and I saw Kansas City, Kansas. And I said, wait a minute, what's going on? So could you just, and then I saw you worked for a county. Then I was really screwed up. So can
Gotcha.
you give us that topography?
All of it's so easy to explain. Um, Kansas City, Kansas was around for quite a while. Kansas City, Missouri came along, but Kansas City was very small. It continued to absorb other sections of the community and became kind of moderately large. By no means, we have 18 fire stations, 500 people. Kansas City, Missouri probably has 12, maybe even 1,500, about 30, 35 stations. Um, the communities are absolutely connected. When they say Kansas City, usually it's either Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Mo, or I'm trained and I mean it. I can only say Kansas City, Kansas when I'm talking about the current hometown for me. But the third way to describe it is the metro. So of course that would be Kansas City, all the communities connected on the Mo side, and then Kansas City, Kansas, and all the connecting communities on our side. It's very difficult to tell when you leave Kansas City, Kansas into Missouri. The lines are very jagged. It's not unusual for us to go on calls in their community and then let them know to come along, and vice versa. Of course, when we go to any multiple alarm fire, they play a
Mhm.
major part. We had a person trapped under 21 feet of earth, a trench rescue. They they sent a tremendous amount of help. We have an incredible relationship. There's one project that we're working towards maybe getting an automatic response instead of mutual aid response, but they are incredible. But I got to tell you, our people are wonderful. Now, if you go back in time, and I think it's been about 25 years, Wyandotte County has two other cities, a place called Edwardsville and a place called Bonner Springs. Great fire departments, great people, great communities. And the word was, if we begin weaving this into some kind of a unified county government, which it is, we can save money on public works. We can save money on the sheriff's department. The fire departments are separate and apart, but we have a complete boundary drop. So we do automatic aid. The other day, we had a really good working house fire, and the number two chief in Edwardsville ran the show. He was the closest. He got there first. Seamless, seamless. We have what we call a low rise response guide, 5 engines, two ladder trucks, a heavy rescue. You get the idea. And both of those cities have agreed and they have already adopted it. Well, they have a single station operation. So most of those resources are coming from KCK. Typical year, either one or both will come into our community more than 100 times, most likely with an ambulance or supporting automobile accidents. The other thing it takes a minute to get used to, we are surrounded and wrapped up with interstate highways.
Mm.
I'm not sure I could, if I was given a test, that I could name them all. 435, 70, 635, 630. I'm sorry, I got that one. 670, 29, 35. And I could go on. It's amazing, but it really makes Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri very easy city to navigate. Thank goodness for Siri, because I wouldn't be able to get around otherwise. But
Figure
with
out where you're going.
she's even trying to take me someplace now. She just lit up. But with that said, the communities are very interwoven, get along incredibly well for the fire department, and both are very, very busy. We do somewhere about 37,000 calls, which is roughly 100 a day. And we stay on the road. And of course, since I've been in Florida, they sent me pictures of two really good working fires that, of course, I missed. And Kansas City, Missouri is a lot busier than we are.
So let me thank you for talking about mutual aid and automatic mutual aid. We just had a very serious fire here. A four-story apartment with a unique in the corner. The bedrooms are upstairs on the fourth floor. You get in the third floor, and then there's a stairway up. Heavy fire. Uh, One of the things we did years ago is we really, and they've done a great job of beefing it up even more. We're all small. We all need a lot of help. So there's a lot more going to each other's calls. Um, and that's what happened in this call. Unfortunately, they did have a fatality, but a lot of people uh, came out by ladder, by tower, by bucket. If you looked at one particular side of the building, it looked like Boston. There was ladders to every balcony. There was ladders to all the windows, or all the balconies and some of the windows. They did just a tremendous job. I'm very proud of them. But one of the things that you brought up was years ago, the decision was made that if a dispatcher just had that feeling, well, we created a system where if you get two calls, if you remember back in the day, if when they had ERS boxes in the Bronx, if you got just one call, it was one assignment. If they got a second call, they'd fill it, right? So the region started that a few years ago, but one of the caveats we said was if the dispatcher feels it in their gut and they're just getting a lot of calls, you do whatever you got to do. You get whatever you think we need to get going because you know we're going to call for it, and that's what they did. I believe that's what they did that day. They and everybody packed up. Everybody loaded up their response. So uh, there was quite a bit of rolling stock. There were delays because of there's geography included. I think the first due crew, the first due engine did a great job. They did a transition attack because they knew there was going to be a delay before they could get a line to where it had to be. Very proud of them. Those are the guys who used to work for me. Uh, the great operation. Very proud of the whole operation. Again, we don't. It's hard to call something a success when someone passes, but given the odds and given the conditions, they did an amazing job. So I didn't want to thank you for reminding me to mention that.
Well, I think that's excellent and worthy of spending some time to discuss. And, I think immediately you've already described the strength in having that mutual aid relationship. I've had people question me why we did a boundary drop, complete boundary drop with both Edwardsville and Bonner Springs. They're part of our fire department. The only thing's difference is administratively and paychecks. They get their
Mm.
payroll system, we get ours. But the story I like to share is to remind them, and you said it, on September 11th, 2001, perhaps the greatest fire department that ever existed in New York City. And I think they're the second largest in the world. I know they're by far the largest in the
They're
world.
going to say they're the largest.
I think Tokyo is a little bit bigger, but I wouldn't argue. But I know New York City's the best. And I hope John Salk was listening in tonight, but without a doubt, they're the best. They were brought to their knees.
Yeah.
Firefighter, many firefighters that were retired, many yet to become firefighters were, of course, at ground zero. And Connecticut and Pennsylvania and New Jersey and Maryland and Virginia and Delaware and so many other places, New Hampshire, as I like to say, New Hampshire, but New Hampshire all filled in for their fire department.
Yeah.
They did it seamlessly. I don't know what the run load is for New York City, but I would guess in a daytime it's probably several thousand. And it would be great to say, look, you have your heart attack. We'll get to you just as soon as we get this situation cleared up at World Trade Center. It doesn't work that way. So if New York City, the most powerful, the most wonderful, the most capable fire department needs mutual aid, don't we all need mutual aid?
So when so with in the height in the height of the battle, the response times only went up 1 minute. 1 minute. Just think about that. That's a lot of moving app. There's a lot of moving steel there. One of the sad and it's the mentality of wanting to help people. One of the crisis points is that this all happened at shift change. So particularly with the well, almost I would say everybody probably, but particularly with the squads and the rescues, they they all got on the truck. They all however they wherever they had to lay, sit, ride, pack the back of whatever, they all went. So those instead of those companies coming in with seven, a lot of them were coming in with 12, 13, 14 people. And then we know
What a
the outcome
horrible,
of that.
horrible, horrible final result. But I think to a person, every member was proud to be there. Every member knew that that was their place, including the chief of the department would perish that day. So
Yeah.
God bless them. There's not a better fire department in the world. I'm going to hold out whether Tokyo is the biggest or not, but New York is the best. And they if they needed it to demonstrate it, they demonstrated that to the world. And I shared with you my sentiments about George Bush 43. And again, he's on the pile cheering the New York City firefighters on and promising them that we would get revenge. And he was true to his word.
It's just amazingly tragic. So so you're you're the Kansas City, Kansas Fire Department, but you're actually a county.
It's called a unified government,
That's
and
right.
the part of the government that I work for is actually Kansas City, Kansas. But the guy that I rub shoulders with the sheriff or a deputy sheriff or any of their jailers, et cetera, they are actually Wyandotte County employees. Wyandotte County, I thought, how odd that is. Well, it's named after the Wyandotte tribe of Indians. And up
Okay.
around New England, and especially in New York, I know that's not part of New England, but there's Indian reservations, there's Indian lands, there's Indian names. It's the same in Kansas.
We have those here. It's amazing, even in Connecticut. Two of our two
Not
of our biggest casinos are run. I think all of our casinos are run somehow by one of the tribal nations,
and it's
and we
on
have some
private
smaller
land.
we have some smaller tribes that don't have the financial wherewithal as the two tribes that run the casinos.
And
Uh,
maybe they've got a corner on the market because the Wyandotte Indian Nation has the 7th Street Casino in downtown Kansas City, Kansas. But the river, for instance, when the Kansas River enters into our county, it becomes the Caw, CAW. And I thought that's such an interesting name. How did they get that out of Kansas? Well, they didn't. There's a CAW, a Caw tribe, as an example.
okay.
The Porch Creek Indians had uh, some affiliation with the area. I mean, it's amazing to see the diversity, to see the groups, and then I could again go on for a while. But without a doubt, it's an amazing, great place. It's part of the Great Plains. Speaking of the Great Plains, it does get very cold, but if you live in Connecticut, so does Connecticut.
Yeah, it's like we're having this strange environmental changes less down here. I think we're on the coast too. We're down, on the sound. So compared to up in the hills on the north, the quiet corners and the northwest corner, they get if it's raining here and during storms, many times they're getting snow and sleet. So we're not used to snow around here. It kind of makes us crazy. But we only get like two or three snowblower worth, you know, uh, snowblower with storms a year. All right. So you are the first as part of a leadership series. Over the next 4, 5, 6 months, we're going to be bouncing all over the place. We've got organizations that do research for the fire service. They're going to be coming on. We're going to bring our friend Bob Duval is at a cutting edge meeting, another cutting edge meeting on electric cars and all that lithium battery stuff. And again, we've talked about, I have talked with, um, what's his name? Uh, Now it'll come back to me. I apologize. Concussion time.
It sucks to get old.
It sucks to hit your head. Um,
Worse.
step up and lead. Um,
Sure.
where I can't remember his first name. We've been talking back and forth, but he is so busy. Getting him hooked into a Wednesday night has been difficult, but he's committed to coming on. So anyway, so let's start at the basics, right? Particularly with your wealth of experience and your different levels and responsibilities and number of different the organic side of it and the territories you've protected. Let's start with the three top things, the three most important things to you that if you had a deputy that you wanted to pass the reins to when you're leaving, right? Give me two or three um,
Personal traits.
traits in and decisions or how to handle those issues.
Well, I think traits are mostly innate. Either you're honest or you're not. Either you can make reasonable decisions, have good judgment or not. And I could go on. So, not that I don't see that as leadership qualities. They certainly are, by the way. But what I did for my leadership slant, first, I always like to say if you've read one leadership book, you've read one leadership book. Doesn't mean that it's bad, but everybody's got a different cut. Everybody has a different take. And it becomes a tapestry, or at least I hope that's how the viewers that's watching us tonight see it because it's true. So for me, I had an ongoing problem in Atlanta that continued in DC, and it was a tiny percentage of the membership, but they would do dumb things. And when you do dumb things, you get in trouble. Fair statement.
Yep.
So the book, I kept notes, I kept note cards, and I started a presentation. I called it All About Leadership, and then I changed it up a little bit, and I talked about it becoming career crushers, things that you'd lose your job over. And I kept them all in 3x5 cards. So I asked and
That's
begged.
actually brilliant. That's
Well,
brilliant.
I don't know if it was or not. We're not going to go there. I'm just the Rube. So I put together what I thought was an outline for a presentation. And Bobby Holton, and you've already mentioned it, rest his soul, what a great man, fire engineering extraordinaire, had a chance to be a high ranking member in Albuquerque. I think he was a fire chief in Texas. His pedigree will go 1,000 miles above and beyond mine. He agreed to let me do that presentation. The feedback was pretty good from it, or I guess good enough for him to say, why don't you put together those thoughts and ideas and let's see if we can't get you to put the book together. So I had good luck with a couple of other books. My fourth book is called It's Always About Leadership. And I believe that from riding the right front seat, putting out a fire, to being a great paramedic, to attracting volunteer members to the company, to being a volunteer fire chief or a career fire chief. And what I did with those cards, again, everybody's take on leadership is just a slight bit different, is I put together what I thought was the 13 most important rules. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I'd just like to mention a couple of them, and where I can go through all of them. But as I mentioned them, if you say, give me a little bit more about it, I would. But I always start off with show up. If you're not physically present in there, you have problems. And I go into a discussion about, you got to be there at the parties, the Christmas events, when the town has parades. But what's even more important is when the membership needs you, when
Hmm.
a person's in the hospital, when we've had a member injured, or perhaps they've had a concussion, Nick. We've got to stand behind our people 100%. And again, showing up at the good times and showing up at the bad times speaks volumes. And I think in that chapter, well, of course, I know in that chapter, it says something on the order of when you're not there, your absence speaks volumes about you, meaning you don't really care. So that was the starter, if you will, of the book.
Let me, and it's funny you say that because when every once in a while, if I happen to be in the right spot at the right time and there's a recruit class going on, I'll give them some stuff. And the one thing I say is show up, right? Number two, show up on time. Now, and when I say show up, it's the same thing. I show up, show up, be here, focused, why know why you're there. And boy, I've seen bosses breeze in, breeze out. They're showing the colors. I was there. I went and I stopped, but they weren't there.
Well,
They
you,
were
and I know, and everybody knows when someone shows up, if it's genuine or if it
right.
was just, again, as I would say, a squirt in a wave. The next one is lead from the front. And I'd love to tell you that all of the concepts that I wrote the book about are my own ideas in their mind and haven't I? Well, they're not. They're items that I've learned, items that I believe in, items that I've heard lectures about. And again, leading from the front means exactly that. Um, if you want somebody to do something, you got to support them. If you want to be in a position of leadership, you've got to demonstrate that you're willing to do whatever you ask your people of, and then begin building trust. Trust is so important. And it's always interesting because I ask folks to define that trust for me. And some folks really have problems. For me, it's pretty simple. Trust says, I will not harm you, you will not harm me. And it's nothing more or nothing less than that. And what I tell folks about the trust piece as it relates to leading from the front is that you have to earn that trust. You have to respect that trust. And I, in return, give you my trust on the beginning. And what you do with the trust that I
Mm.
enhance to you or provide for you is your business. If you want to maintain it, it'll be there forever. If you want to throw it in the trash can, and I'm talking about me sitting in the chief's office, so be it. That's again a decision that you're going to need or have to make. So, with that said, that trust piece becomes pretty important.
I,
Another theme that, go ahead, please.
so along that, even when people screw up, and everybody has problem children. One of the things that I battled with or strive to do was get ahead of it and say, listen, this is the plan, this is the contract, this is the rule, this is the SOP, this is whatever. And somewhere's in there that's going to say, if you don't play well, you're going to get in trouble. So we've agreed somehow, or there's an understanding that this is the plan. If you violate from the plan, we're going to have to fix it. Where I see people lose their minds is they get so frustrated that they really go out of their way to fix it. They instead of just taking fundamental steps for progressive discipline, for counseling, for giving them uh, having someone senior give them some advice, whatever it is. They just the leaders I see get into jackpots just draw and start firing torpedoes, and it's not received well, and then that infuriates, and now the battle's on. There's I've
It's a,
also had times where I walked up and said, what were you thinking? Blah
it's a,
blah blah. Okay, well, guess what? This is what's going to happen now. Do you understand? Do you understand why it happened? Right, that's what you're gonna know. You can do whatever you want, you can grieve it, you can go whatever, but here's why. Here's why what you shouldn't do. Here's what you did do. This is the plan. If you want to fight it, we'll go all the
And
way.
I don't think that really goes through the crossroads of trust when you have to implement discipline. Yeah, that's a little different. And you jump down to chapter 12 out of 13 chapters in my book. Well, what I talk about extensively is your personal behavior, whether
Oh
it's in
yeah,
the fire department or whether it's out. And the way I describe discipline, first of all, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to beg you, I want you to think about, please be self-disciplined. If you're self-disciplined, your life is great. On the job, off the job, in the volunteers, at your home, at your full-time job, whatever, self-disciplined people really typically have a leg up on everybody. Well, if you can't be self-disciplined, but I'm going to keep asking you to do that. What I'm going to go over with you next is that I strongly believe in what's called the hot stove rule of discipline. So first things first,
don't
I'm
touch
make
that.
sure that the problem gets solved for the good of the department. And secondly, I'm going to do that with the least damage to my member. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Not suggesting if you're sitting in a jail cell for beating your spouse and you're up for felonious assault, you're probably going to get fired. No, you're going to get fired. That's probably no blue sky there at all. But if you come to let work late, you mentioned about showing up on time. It's not that I don't want people to show up on time, but that's not a cardinal sin. Is that fair? That's usually
Right.
something
That's
we can,
fixable. That's fixable.
it's fixable. So what a hot stove rule says is, first of all, if you touch the stove, kind of play along with me. What
Yeah, I'm
happens?
with you.
You get what?
Burned.
You get burned. Now, with a hot stove, doesn't care who you are. Wait a minute, that's Nick. Nick's the host of this great show. He has a tremendous amount of following. We're not going to harm Nick, but Rube, Sluggo Rube, now, what does the stove do? Who does it harm?
Doesn't care.
Doesn't care. It's completely blind to gender, to race, to anything. It doesn't care. You touch it, you're going to get harmed. Now, you were well trained, if you recall this, when you were a very young man, Mr. Nick. You were trained about not touching the hot stove, and you were trained thoroughly well. But by who?
By my parents.
By your mom, by your dad. For me, it was my mom. Clearly, don't touch the stove. I've just baked cookies. Knock it off. If you touch it, you will get hurt. And believe me, my mother, rest her soul, was a true worrier, and she worried about me all the time, and just a beautiful relationship and a wonderful mother. So that knocks the next aspect off of you, if you will, of hot stove rule. And then, interesting with the hot stove, the punishment will always, always, always fit the crime. Now, isn't that crazy? Firing somebody for coming in late to work one day, that's overkill.
Yep.
Um, Letting somebody rot in jail for a month and not firing them, yeah, that's underkill. So if you have a glancing blow, just barely touch the edge of the hot stove, what's going to happen?
Well, hopefully we'll get a minor burn.
You'll get a minor burn. And again, you've lifted a pot or a pan or been in a fire call where you've touched something, realize it's hot, move your hand back, and literally 4 or 5 seconds, or maybe you had to put a little ice on it, it's gone. But little dumb Denny comes home from school and I decide to sit on the stove. What's going to happen to me?
There'll be a little bit bigger problem.
You're probably going to get a blister exactly where you don't want to get that blister. Is that fair? And the last rule about the hot stove says, you know what? After I've touched the stove, after it's punished me, it forgets about it. It doesn't hold a grudge and say, you know what? 2 weeks ago, young man, I had a chance to burn your hand. Well, that doesn't work. It doesn't have that brain. It doesn't have that mind. So self-discipline is absolutely incredible. That's the most important thing that you can get from me or anybody. Be self-disciplined. Secondly, remember the hot stove rule. The hot stove rule goes through those items. If you have to deliver punishment, fix the problem. Fixing the problem means that it does the most good for the organization. And then second tenet of that is that we want to do the least damage to the member. If it's a volunteer member, we need them. Did I say that right?
Nope, you across the country.
across the country. If it's a career member, I've already paid, even if they got fired in recruit school, I've already paid tens or 20 or 30 thousands of
Yeah.
dollars to get them to that point to put turnout gear on the back to start their training. I never hire anybody to fire them. Now I've had to deal with people that have done very, very, very unsavory things. And when we're talking about discipline, the other thing that we have to discuss is having and maintaining the public trust. Without the public trust, we can fold our tents and go
Think
home.
about how many
You're not.
think about how many systems blow up. How many because oh, I got you covered. I got you covered, right? And then all of a sudden, and then that no one's got you covered because now it's all out in it's out in the market. It's on in the internet. It's everywhere, and that paints the whole department as a bunch of whatever.
When you're not great at putting out a fire, I hate to say it that way. Usually, there's some forgiveness. There really is. It's just again human nature. But if you do some criminal activities, child pornography. Let me back up just a little. Public trust. Today in our system, we have gone to probably over 80 medical calls, and I'm speaking exactly for my system, my real system, nothing hypothetical. And during those calls, there's probably going to be a little old lady that's in a back bedroom. And she told the dispatch center, tell those firefighters to come in. I can hardly breathe. I don't know why. The little old ladies always outlive the little old men, and they live by themselves for a while. So the firefighters go in there, they treat her, they give her a nebulizer, they package her up, they take her to the hospital. On the dresser drawer is her wedding rings, her wallet, her keys to the house. Probably there's a little dog, a little tiny little dog that keeps her company. And what we need to make sure is everything stays exactly the same, right?
Wow,
Now, we make sure we lock her house and we make sure we take care of her dog, whatever that looks like, to a neighbor, to animal control, whatever it takes to do those several little things. And when you stop back and think about it, what would you want them to do for your mother?
no, listen, this goes back to a dear friend of yours. This goes back to the a year or so before he died. Uh, Bruno was getting interviewed, and he says, "Where else, in what other job, are you getting called all the time? There's no competition, and I'm gonna call you in to take care of my sick 3-year-old daughter, and I'm going to have complete unbridled trust in everything you're going to do, medically, physically, the whole route. What other job is there in the world? I think Bobby was interviewing him, as a matter of fact. What other job is there in the world where someone comes in and gives you complete carte blanche to do whatever you have been trained to do to make things better?
But that's without a doubt. And again, when we go back to personal behavior and what we're talking about, if you violate that trust, so you are in a position to help that person that I've just described, and or you go to another call, a medical call where there's a teenager involved, and where good EMTs, good paramedics have to cut every stitch of clothes to see if the exit wound is worsened. And I could go on, all absolutely above board, required, protocol driven, scientific, and demonstrated that that's always the right treatment to provide if it's necessary. And then we find out later that firefighter or groups of firefighters was involved in pornography. We've lost the public trust.
Oh,
We
tremendous.
have lost the public trust. And, I hate doing this because I'm going to call out one community, but what happened in Ferguson, Missouri with the police department? What was the demand?
Oh, wait, which one? Ferguson's had
Shut
it.
down the police department after the riots in Ferguson when Michael Brown was killed.
Is that the one where they were beating on him?
Michael Brown was shot, and they said it wasn't necessary that he needed to be shot. And I'm not going to argue that. The officer had a chance to use a taser or a weapon. He decided to use the weapon. It was fatal. Let's kind of forget about that. But in that particular case, the public was so mad at the police department, all again, statement of fact. They wanted to have the police department dissolved.
Yes. Yep.
10,000 people lived in a community. And you say, how is that possible? Well, of course, they got bids from St. Louis County, Missouri Police Department for the county to take it over. And they got bids from the state police. I don't know how they worked through it, but they did. They kept the Ferguson Police Department. They got a new chief. They completely reorganized. And the community's pretty happy with them now. But when you lose the public trust, that's the point I'm trying to make. You lose everything, to include your constituents, your budget, your ability to
You'll
operate. Just crazy.
you'll lose your people. You'll lose your people because if it's paint, if the broad brush paint job is bad enough, the people will not want to be there anymore. They'll be so tired of being accosted at supermarkets or seeing stuff written on Facebook or whatever that includes them, even though they weren't there, not even in the country, but because they worked at that spot, that place. That's that that's that, the old line. If you're, what would your grandmother say if she read this in an article in the newspaper?
Yeah, good.
Would you want her to read it?
They call it
Right?
the mama test, right? What would
Right.
your mama think?
Yep.
So again, I'm absolutely right there with you. The great state of Virginia, the Commonwealth of Virginia, they invested in a exit study for EMS.
Mm.
Most of the EMS in that great state, that great Commonwealth, is driven by volunteer members. So obviously, they're not getting paid. They're doing this out of the goodness of their heart. Training is tremendous. Pressure is high. They've got to spend time all crazy hours. And the number one reason why they left, it wasn't about the training. It wasn't about the time. It wasn't about certifications. It was that we have leadership that does not support us. The leadership, just like you're saying, ended up being the issue, that they were not taking care of business. They were not self-disciplined. They didn't resolve problems when they came up, and therefore it's time for me to reinvest my time somewhere else where I'm going to get a return on investment. And you mentioned Chief Brunacini, and the very last item that the book talks about is simply being nice. And again, I know there's so much influence of Chief Brunacini in the fourth book that I put together. It's always about leadership, and I know it's egregious to boast on television, but thank you for letting me do that. And in this book, when you stop and think about it, what does it really cost to be nice? And the thing that I would change, if Chief Brunacini was here today, and I miss him immensely. I think about him often. We're coming up on an anniversary of his death in not too many days from now. Is I think it should be nice and be kind. And what I've learned
Mhm.
since the chief passed, through again a lot of self-study and a lot of interaction with great people like yourself in the show, be nice is simply not doing something that disturbs or causes a problem, or saying hello first, but be kind begins putting it into motion.
I
Be
listen, you got me on. I agree with you 100%. I think there's what, how can I put this? So I've been exposed over my career of some ambulance companies that were not very well led. And you could even say we travel around doing studies. So I'm not going to say where I was, but it was not, it was clear and apparent why they couldn't get anybody to stay in the first 15 minutes of our meeting. And I'm going, it's got to be crazy working here. How just the answers we've gotten and the way they're given and all this stuff, it was like, why would anybody? And then it got worse because then we started interviewing crews. We looked at the ambulances they were using and the condition they were in. We looked at the where the I can't even call them offices, the spots, because some of them were tucked into bizarre locations. where they could just back a rig in there and put a couple cots on. It was just terrible. And you're wondering why nobody wants to be here and you can't hire anybody. And in particularly in today's world, there's such a we have an issue where people don't want to. We have people that are dying to get into emergency services, but we don't have enough of those. You saw this too, I'm sure, when you started in DC. When for my job, there was hundreds of applicants that took that test. Now people are hiring, they might have 12 people apply. And those people are leaving other places that they're unhappy with, right? So we're not growing, we're recycling.
I would have to say I think you're right on every front, and it's sad that the leadership falls into that. But again, taking the opportunity to provide good information like this program, to be able to grab some books to bring other presenters on to talk about leadership, well, that's really honestly critical. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but then I did a fifth book. This is my most recent. It's called Choosing to Command. And this is a different approach to leadership. This is the leadership at an incident. It talks about making the right decision at all calls, the first time and every time, by using a process that aviation uses, which is called crew resource management. So that's my
Amen.
latest journey. I've been asked a couple of times, what's next? I'll probably be retiring from active duty, I think, about early 27 or a couple months into 27. I've made a true commitment to KCK to be around for the World Cup that's coming to town. It's going to be a big event. I want to help them plan for it, but I also got to tell you, from a selfish standpoint, I want to see the world's largest sporting event. But then, will I write another book? Maybe. Will I continue to present? Absolutely. So blessed to be a part of the National Fire Academy's adjunct staff. Again, the reason why I'm in a hotel room and not in my home little studio is simply because the Fire Academy has invited me out. So again,
What are you doing? What are you doing this week?
command and control of incident operations.
That's right.
St. Petersburg has about 24 people roughly in the class. They're lieutenants, captains, and chiefs, first and second rank of chief officer. Incredible people. If you've never visited here, I'm going to be part of the tourism for just a minute. The community is incredible, wonderfully welcoming. They have a free bus looper, they call it, that goes all throughout town, cost you nothing. You get to see the Gulf of Mexico, the beautiful white sands, the beautiful blue water. What an incredible visit. And I tell you, if you live in Connecticut and it's January, February, or March, you want to come spend a week down here. It is spectacular, my friend.
So I want to make sure everybody realizes that Dennis is not just losing his mind showing all his books. I asked, we talked about this before. Actually, I wanted him to come on. One of the reasons because he's a resource, right? There's a lot of books out there you can read, but there's only a few that I shouldn't say a few. There are some that I trust. And so, and again, now I saw the ad for DC. When is that out? The DC book?
The DC book is the fourth book. So nope, sorry, it's the third book. It's been in circulation for a while. DC,
Okay. Yes. Yep.
again, I don't know why, but I like 13 chapters, but it goes over. We had just to give you an idea of the opening, and I know you're not going to believe me, but I promise everything that's in all the books are facts. But early in my stay, we had a double shooting at the White House. Did you hear me, Nicholas?
I did, but I didn't hear about the shooting.
I can't tell you the day, but it was in early 2007. I'm at my desk. I'm doing what a fire chief's supposed to do, whatever that is. And they dispatched a call, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for two shot. Everything stopped. It was surreal. So I grabbed up the radio. I walked about three doors down, was the medical director. We have DCS two full-time medical directors. And I asked Dr. Williams, And this is how shocking it was. And this is going to be the stupidest question that will ever be on your show. I looked at him and I said, "Is the White House still at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue?" He says, "It is." And I said, "Doc, they just put out a double shooting at the White House. A guy like me and a guy like you needs to go." And I think I didn't hold it against him, but I know he didn't believe me because he yoked up the phone. He called the dispatch center and he verified it. So away we go, and we responded there. I had to remind him that, red lights are for a reason. But at any rate, we got through it just fine. When we got to the White House, we were met by a uniformed member of the U.S. Secret Service. He was actually a lieutenant. And he looked at me as I'm getting out of the car. They're opening the gate. They can see it's all the flashing lights and all. And he says, "Are you here for the package for the hazmat?" I said, "No, sir." I said, "I'm here. It's all going to tie together." I said, "I'm here for the shooting. I'm traveling with the medical director." "Oh, I know. Come on in. It's over here." So we went around to the West Portico side off of Lafayette Plaza. And we learned that a large box had been thrown over the fence. Every day at the White House, people are throwing stuff on the lawn. It's just the way it is. And when it reaches a certain size and it's a container of any type, it becomes a package. So they had classified it as such. And again, I don't know their rules. I don't want to break any laws. I don't want the Secret Service to show up to arrest me. But when they hit a certain level, the next thing they do is they begin to work towards neutralizing the threat. So they have a weapon, and I know the nickname of it, but I've never seen it. I know it's a long weapon. And the idea is at least two officers, uniform members, report to that general area with their weapons. Not that there isn't snipers on the roof and many people guarding the grounds, but they're bolstering it now with pretty high powered stuff. So a brand new Sarge and a officer with him comes out, and the Sarge had them charge their weapons, which was the big mistake. When they go back to the armory and they're not allowed to charge the weapons until they're told to do so, they try to get the weapons back to ready to be stored, and one of the two weapons fires into the ground, doesn't hit them, but all the concrete spalls, and they have a couple of nicks and cuts. They get packaged up in our ambulance and they go off to the hospital. I suspect the Sarge probably became an officer again, but that's my humble opinion. So that was my orientation a couple of weeks in, and I thought, yeah, this is going to be as interesting as I remembered as a firefighter coming through the ranks. We also had a fire in the old executive office building. That was a really good fire. Old executive office building, also known as the Eisenhower building, is pretty much connected to the White House. It's on the campus. It's connected in a way that I can't tell you a whole lot about. But we went there and it turned out to be, went to a third alarm. That's another time when I met President Bush. But at any rate, when we got there, to me, it was amazing. The building is fully sprinklered. It's got all kinds of systems, except where this huge amount of power comes into the building from the sub basement through the top of the building, which again, I can't tell you those details. Not that I know specifically, but I know it's something I can't speak of. And they had powered that up at a time when it didn't need power, meaning they had tools laying against it. The bar that they isolated and then repowered too early caused the fire. Fire was very well contained, but the building filled up with smoke.
Mm.
And once again, I got to hang out, first of all, with Vice President Cheney and then with President Bush. And Vice President Cheney sent an incredible letter to me, which, of course, I have framed with pictures in my office today. And then, secondly, President Bush invited me to lunch. Get out of here.
Really, that's crazy.
I'm with you. And a guy like me, I didn't deserve any of what happened there, has in like so many positive things. And I've had so many great things happen in Kansas City already, but we are truly blessed in every way. So that's sort of the genesis of the book. DC Fire has been very successful. All the books that I have are available through Fire Engineering, which I think
Right. I
is
was just say that
great.
you get them through there, right?
And also they're available on Amazon.
Oh, okay, great. Well, listen, so we've been going for almost an hour and 15 minutes here. What I want to do is give you as much time as you want, other than the Fire Academy. Where are you going? Where are you going to be talking at? What
Um,
conferences?
because I keep a full-time job, I primarily try to save up my leave time to be at the Fire Academy, but I will be in French Lick, Indiana. I'm speaking at the EMS conference on the 19th and 20th of November. Truly very, very excited about that opportunity. Later in the new year, I think about March, I'm headed to Charleston, West Virginia. I think it's March 7th and 8th off the top of my head. And we're going to be working on the newest book. I've got a presentation about crew resource management that goes along with choosing to command. What I like to do with that program is it is a full 2 days. Some people want it in a half a day. Of course, I have to pin it down, pare it.
Yeah, just
Some wants it in a day, but I'm going to do the full 2 full days. There are a couple of other examples, and in a few weeks, I'm headed to Waukee, Iowa. That's another state that has a lot of
golly.
names, and I'll be doing another command and control for the Fire Academy. So if you want to meet anybody more blessed than me, I don't know who it's going to be. I know I'm the luckiest man in the world. I know I have to work hard because I've been given so much, but I believe in everything that we do in our business. When people ask to help them to be their mentor or to provide information, the answer is always going to be yes.
So, Chief, one last question. How many people between survivors, support personnel, how many people do you think go down to the Fire Academy for the Memorial Weekend?
I think it varies for lots of different reasons, but I would say consistently somewhere between 3 to 4,000. It's the most prestigious, it's the most honorable, it's the most wonderful event. Last year I couldn't make it, but 3 years prior to that, the Jersey boys, which are kind of close to you, they take care of all the logistics, primarily food service. And I've been a waiter. I've worn a
Well, no, you weren't a waiter. You were the maitre d, and
a couple times
you
later D, but they whined about you get the easiest job. So I swung, I took the waiter that had to go the furthest distance inside of that tent.
no
I
way.
was truly honored to serve food though. But when you think about it, you're feeding people who have given the most precious
Oh,
gift that I hope I never have to experience, but I knew that I can never repay them. So when people teased me, I said, "Watch this." And again, I swear to you, I took the most difficult and the longest stray, and by far I'm the oldest. Not that that part mattered, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew I'm truly humbled and honored. And in fact, what they said, "You've finally worked yourself out of a job." I said, "What does that mean?" They said, "Well, the team leaders, like the maitre d's, you're not going to be on that team anymore," which again, I couldn't go there last year because of the job. But this year I'll be there and I'm going to be a food server and I'm going to have
yeah.
on my same bow tie.
I couldn't. I was stunned. I was escorting a family. I cannot remember where they were from. Somewhere's in New England, and I come around the corner, and who's there but Rube? I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? So then, of course, and you were the maitre d. They felt like they were walking into a restaurant in New York City, and you to get over there and what can I do for you? Blah 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 blah. Go through everything, give everybody the direction and stuff, and you walk away, and I go, all right, where do you think that guy's from? And they go, well, we're not really sure because he's got a unique accent. I said, that guy used to be the fire chief from the DC, Washington, DC Fire Department. They go, really? I said, yep, that's him.
And
That,
not that that's
and
a
he was
big
the chief
deal,
of Atlanta.
but
I
that's
said,
not
and
such a big deal.
that's your maitre d for today.
And if you write books, if you say you've got to lead from the front, if you say that you've got to make sure that everybody feels good, you've got to be able to be nice, be kind, you have to make sure that everybody thrives. You better live it. If you
No,
write it, you
absolutely.
better live it. So again, if anybody out there has my books, I'm not asking them to buy them, but if I'm not living by them, call me out, please.
Listen, The are you still giving away the low rise checklist?
Yes.
All
So
right. So where
high rise guide, they need to email me, and I use the simplest email. My son's my IT department, so he insisted it's Chief Rubin at me.com. Pretty simple. CHIEFRUBIN at me.com. We have a high rise guide now. We're working on our next journey, which is going to be special operations. And then the swan song before I leave, we'll also have a guide how to handle hazardous materials calls. And it's a step by step what the first company does, what the second company does. And I think it's pretty neat. The first
do
one
we
that I got to build was in Atlanta. DC had a version. And now I think I say I wrong. We have finally perfected it. The some of the chief officers there, almost all of them, are truly amazing people.
well we need to clarify one quick question. Is the R in Rubin capitalized?
I capitalize it, but I don't know if it matters. So
Okay.
uh,
So that's number one.
capital
Number
CHIF, capital RUBIN.
so just to share again just a little bit. When you got their command boards, the wagon was not a thing.
We
My understanding from what I've seen is that you got were they in a wagon at least? Were they in a truck at least?
um I love my fire department, so I don't want to sound trite or better than thou. But we've kind of been able, with a tremendous amount of internal help, organize a command system. And I think every day we get a little bit better at it. I think every day it becomes more of a routine instead of a task. And it's just like what I'm doing here this week. A lot of people on Sunday when we started, oh, this is terrible. We'll never do this. This isn't. And today we're in the fourth or fifth day. We've probably handled about 20 incidents. Today's incident was massive, and they're saying this is really cool stuff. So don't knock it till you try it. I was lucky enough to be I'm going to call it myself a protege, a friend of Chief Brunacini's, watching what he did with Fireground Commander. Uh,
Mm.
just it gives me the chills, and we just have to get back to our roots of properly managing a call to make sure that every one of our people go home and that we take care of the customers.
You know the guy that worked with him that had the model in the
Oh, sure.
what was that guy's name?
uh, you hit me with that, so it's going to be Chief Abbott, Chief Don Abbott.
Don Abbott. So I was very lucky. I was down in Florida at a hazmat conference and I actually helped him. It took us 7 hours, but I actually helped him to put all the card tables together and build it, right? Would you believe I have one of those in my office? Not that big. I have a pool table sized HO railroad scale community
I am not surprised.
that we do ICS hazmat, whatever you want on.
And
And I
Chief
got that idea from Abbott.
Chief Abbott is another tremendous hero, another Phoenix legend. So sad that he has passed away.
Mm.
The people that he taught and touched and continues to touch through guys
Yeah,
like
it's
yourself, and
crazy.
there are many other out there
I
that
got the I got to go to the or not there for a conference, and I actually got to go to the firehouse. And he turned into the training room, and I sat in the front half of the car, and then went into the cut in half rescue, the cut in half contrail truck. It was crazy. It was crazy to watch that.
they did such a good job. And again, Chief Brunacini had two dreams, and he actualized one completely, and that's the Command Training Center. The other one that really still is a thought is a Command Management Center.
Mm.
That the same type of hands-on tactical experience would be
But
dealing,
up here,
yeah, but dealing with personnel and leadership and other related issues. He always talked about the big room with the two-way mirrors, meaning that students would be around a circle up top. Never got to it, but a play would the disgruntled employee, the employee that came in late, whatever, and then the people that watched this vignette carry out, then they would evaluate it and talk through it. What was good,
yeah.
what was bad, what was right, what was wrong.
It's like those movies where you see the operating room and then you see all the students.
I
up
think
high.
that was exactly the view that the chief had. I really do believe that it was. Command Training Center just speaks for itself, incredible. And I think Management Training Center would have been just as good if the chief would have still be with us.
Unbelievable. That was tragic. Unforeseen, but I think maybe you told me or somebody told me that his guys took care of him. That's what he wanted. He wanted his people to respond. I think we talked about it because you told me you were going to the funeral.
I was blessed to go to the family funeral. They invited me to that, and I came back for the public service. But Chief had just gotten off the airplane. I think it really boiled down to medication. He had had some problems with circulation, so they had him on some very powerful blood thinners, and I think it was a
Yeah.
pulmonary embolus. And they say he was on the longest escalator at Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix, and the episode happened at the top, and by the time he was taken off the escalator at the bottom, he was gone. Just
Mm,
not survived.
it's crazy.
Not sur-
Just a humble guy. I'm sitting there one day at one of the conferences, probably at I don't know, and I'm sitting there having breakfast at the hotel, and he goes, "May I sit here?" Yeah, yeah, you can. This was
You
like,
you do a
oh,
lot of stuff with posting articles, and part of
yeah.
it's um, I'm going to try to find my memorial letter to the chief, and I'll send it to you. And
Oh,
boy,
please.
I couldn't be any prouder. I hope everybody reads it. It'll give you a little bit more insight to Chief Bruno.
We will put that out on our Facebook page if that's all right with you.
100%.
All right, we'll absolutely do that.
100%. I wrote it for Nick's Blue, as in Nicholas Bruno
Yeah,
Sr.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Blue Card B Shifter, gave it to Fire Engineering. They all published it, but we're coming up on some more time when it's going to be a point in time when we ought to continue to remember the chief. So
Yeah,
I'll get it to you.
it's crazy. I first met him. He came up for a pub ed thing. It was him and two battalion chiefs. When the fire command mimeographed, was mimeographed. That's how long ago it was. I was a young buck. I was a young kid doing pub ed, and the Pub Ed Association hosted it. We're sitting on our butts in the hallway talking about life.
In the 70s.
Yep, just talking about life. I don't think it was the chief that went on to be Mesa. I think
I can tell you who it was.
the chief
It
that
was
went to Texas.
Bruce Varner. It was
Yep.
Bruce Varner. He took care, and he's my closest friend in life. Chief Varner did all of
Yes.
the audio visuals, and
Yep.
the other one was Chuck Kime, Chief
Yes.
Kime. He
Yes.
was
Tall guy, black hair.
number two guy and also the fire marshal. Unfortunately, Chief Kime is gone. Bruce Varner is doing well.
Yeah.
In fact, I can report to our audience that I talked to Chief Bruce Varner a couple of days ago.
Oh, that's
He
great.
was living in Goodyear, Arizona. He's now moved back to Phoenix, Arizona, his own hometown, and he's a very happy and excited young man. I love him. He's truly a brother.
He's the three of them was it, man. In a suit, it was a suitcase, what I call a suitcase class. We rented a Marriott banquet room up in, I think it was Rocky Hill.
No
And like I
doubt.
said, they were on the road. It was just another weekend for them. They were exhausted. We're literally the two of us are sitting there with our legs straight out, leaning against the wall, and I'm sitting there talking to Bruno. And back then he was just an up and coming. He wasn't the man that he eventually, that everybody now recognizes his voice.
And Chief Varner, he would be mad if I didn't mention it, but they always rented a Lincoln town car.
To get
Bruce,
there and back?
yep. Well, when they arrived, like Baltimore Airport, they'd
Yeah.
have a town car waiting. Bruce was always the driver. He did all the navigation. He had all the maps, again, long before
Yeah.
GPS. And he would
That was
also
like
have
AAA maps.
restaurants. So in other words, he would know, all right, we're going to Baltimore. Here's the three restaurants we're going to catch, or we're going to New Haven, whatever it might be.
Have a
Uh,
little pizza.
he was that guy. He was truly is that guy. So whenever I travel, I promise if I said, look, I'm in St. Pete, where's the best steak? he's going to be able to off the top of his head.
Well, please tell him everybody from Connecticut says hello,
No, I
because
will.
that was the start of it, man. That was uh the original book and the original program, and it only grew from there.
And again, he is truly a brother. And I'm going to get a plug in. Get him on your show.
Oh, I love that.
I
So you listen, send
really
me his contact information.
will.
Just the memories of starting the ICS. That would be amazing.
I think that and musing about Chief Brunacini and I
Yep.
think I have dozens upon dozens of stories. Bruce traveled probably a couple million air miles with the chief, at least two, and probably 400 or 500 thousand road miles. I know he's got more stories than I do.
Oh yeah.
In
Oh
fact,
yeah.
I'll remind you because you might forget, but you got to get him to tell you about the Nash Rambler and going on a Jaws of Life call when Jaws of Life were brand new.
The Nash Rambler.
Nash Rambler Chief's car. He was taking the fire chief to one of the first cut jobs that Phoenix went on. It was outside of town in a place called Buckhead, about 30 miles outside of town. And I think Chief Varner at the time was probably Private Varner or maybe Engineer Varner, but I think he drove a little too fast. Rumor has it
Rumor, it's been alleged. It's been alleged.
he loves telling the story.
The things that happened, there are so many large events that happened in Phoenix that we still reference. We still reference. We reference the towing explosion. We use that all the time in our business. We From a line of duty death, we reference Brett Tarver all the time.
Talked about it today in class. We have a simulation with a grocery store, and of course, throughout that presentation, the Southwest Grocery and the work Chief Brunacini and the Phoenix Fire Department did.
The thought, again, the valley's the valley. I got to go to dispatch one time. That blew my head up. The dispatcher never stopped talking. Now she wasn't actually dispatching anybody, she was just announcing, but they had to give her a break. They rotated every 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes because they talked for 20 minutes straight. But so I
In
lost
about
what I was
1985, so I'm going back a ways, again, for your notepad, Varner was the commander of communications.
really.
Guarantee it. About 74, I got to meet up with the chief and the team that I just described. And it was always Varner, Chuck Kime, and of course the chief. And Bruce, again, became almost an instant, immediate friend. And I would say, I'm going to guess from about, I can do this, from about I think from about 74, 75 to about 80, he was the commander of communications.
Just crazy. No,
He was
for the people that don't know, Phoenix covers the whole valley, and it's close. And this is with the original tuna can GPS, which they determined quickly that if you parked under a bridge, that won't work. But it's the closest apparatus. So you could have an ambulance from up in Mesa coming back from the trauma center, and if they go through your community and there's a heart attack 5 blocks over, that's who's going.
they set it up first. It was all on Chief Bernasini, and the person that implemented it was Bruce Varner, I promise. But you're
Yep.
you're so right. And you don't think of it, but Phoenix is about the fifth or sixth, maybe seventh largest city in the US.
Hmm. And
And
that when back then they were growing a mile a day. They
yep,
were annexing a mile a day. If you've ever, well, you've flown into, for anybody who hasn't flown into Phoenix, when you
100 times.
fly in, it's a bunch of squares except for where the mountains are. So if you're flying in, you'll see small ball field, 2 blocks, small ball field, 2 blocks, small ball field, two more blocks, huge ball fields, football stadium, blah blah. Then two more blocks and two. It's because it was a very analyzed thing. I'll tell you one last story, then I'll let you go. So again, the well, after Brett died, and that again, people may not know this, in the next 36 hours, every firefighter in the valley Every firefighter in the valley walked through that supermarket. Every single one. They rotated. They literally, every fire company, every shift, everybody got to walk through that fire to understand what happened, flow path, and all that stuff.
How to
Before flow
prevent it.
path was flow path
Yeah, and how to
and
prevent it.
all that stuff.
There was no rumors out of Southwest Grocery because Chief inundated them with facts.
And then, so then they said, we're not going to do this again. So they bought it. And we did this. That's why I want to tell you this. So they went and they got a bunch of restaurants and they determined that it actually takes 12 people, these three, 4-man crews to actually extricate someone who's actually in the fire. And out of that, two out of every 12 people that have air packs are going to have a problem.
And
We had our fast training. We got an old office building. We put steel desks in there. We put the victim in there. Three teams had to go in to do it. And out of the three teams, two people could not function because their air packs malfunctioned. And it was,
well,
and we're a tiny little podunk community.
right. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, then Chief Bernasini does a program, and the name of the program is Rapid Intervention is
Isn't
Not
rapid.
So Rapid, is not so rapid.
I
And
went to that. That was another one that
best.
they did.
He's the best.
Crazy.
Even gave of himself. And, I feel so underaccomplished because of all the great things I do because of all the great things he did. And, I don't know where he found time to sleep. He did so much.
No, I don't know. He could say he just said common sense things and everybody went, "Oh." And he was funny. He he we burn it down for the mineral rights. There's a thousand we could talk about him.
There is. And of course, I tried to steal as many as I can. I hope he's up in heaven smiling. But, probably you and Bruce just talking about Alan would be pretty incredible.
I think we're going to do that. Well, listen, Chief, thank you. I know I'm probably screwing up your prep work for
Nope.
tomorrow.
Nope.
Not that you haven't done it 100 times already, but thank you so much, brother.
Truly an honor and a pleasure, Nick. I think you have an incredible show, a great following. I absolutely love everything that you do. I know the backbone in the show is Jamie, so tip of the fire helmet to her as
Yeah.
well. And thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope one day when you have enough time and you've heard from other people, you tell Rube to come back on. I would be more than
Oh,
willing.
we'll take care of that.
All right, brother.
All right, yeah, so again, one more time. So it's Chief Rubin at
Me.com.
me.com. Again, get this. Listen, you know me. Everybody knows me. No other love checklist. Get the checklist. You're gonna
Low rise and
enjoy
high
it.
rise. All set. All you got to do is ask. Get it right to you and watch for my little column called Boss. That's what I called Chief Brunasini. He was my boss.
Is that going to be in fire engineering?
It was. It was already in fire engineering.
Okay,
It's
perfect.
just it's a single page. That's what
Nice.
I ask you to post.
I will. I will. All
We
right,
keep
brother.
talking
We'll
about
see
it.
you
I'm gonna
later.
cry.
We didn't even ask it. Does it? I don't. Do we have any questions? I don't think so. Nope. All right, sir. Thank you.
God
All
bless,
right.
brother.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. What an honor.